Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. There are some who are convinced that the man in the chair simply channels his higher self. It's much more. And through these many years, no attempt from this stage has ever been to prove it or not. And the reason is because you have free choice. You have free choice. You have free choice. From the biggest to the smallest. That is what this planet has, and Spirit cannot touch it. What Spirit does for you and with you is a response to what you let it do. I want you to stop for a moment. Will you allow yourself to feel the entourage pour in here for a moment? Does it stretch your belief, dear human, to think that there are those beyond that which you think? The very physics that is talked about perhaps has something that is even akin to consciousness. Perhaps you don't know everything. The box that most human beings reside in is one that is a protection. You believe what you've been told, and you also look at what has transpired in the past, and those two become your reality for now and the future. And where in that box is the allowance for the beauty of God that is outside of what you've been told? Do you think that it's possible that when you climb into the closet and shut the door, there's trillions of us? Know your name, know your situation, know that you've climbed in the closet to cry. And you think you're so alone. You have no idea. This particular channel will be given, and there's many directions it could go. I want to tell you what's happening. And then I want to give you some information of what has happened. All given totally in love. The last time I sat before human beings, I made a plea. And the plea was this: set aside the humanism you have for a moment, as though you came in from another planet and you've come across this teaching, this planet, and you smile because you recognize it. You might even recognize the voice of the channel. And you're not involved in anything here, and you're simply observing. And that will create within you a complete and total unbias toward everything I'm going to tell you. For I want to give you some things of truth. I want to set the stage. Here is the axiom. Human beings, when they project the future, project it based upon what they know about the past. In psychology, it is called human nature. The way human beings behave yesterday, the day before, sets an expectation of what is to come tomorrow and beyond. And if nothing has ever happened in the past, that would give you a different perspective. You will simply paste upon the future what has happened in the past. And this is what you do. I'm going to give you an example. You're with a beautiful 6-year-old. Perhaps it's yours. Perhaps not. But you're allied with the 6-year-old. You look into her heart, and you see nothing but innocence and love and beauty. And you say to the 6-year-old, what is it that you would really love for your future? Tell me all about what will your life be if you could paint a picture, the most beautiful thing you want for the future. And the 6-year-old will look up at you and go, that's easy. Every toy I could ever have, from now to the time I die. I want all the toys. I want to be with you. I want you to hold my hand until I die, because I'm safe. I want to go places and do things. I want to enjoy what I have. It's wonderful. Think of all of the beautiful foods and toys and more toys. And that is the future of the 6-year-old. And you back up for a moment and you realize the kid never mentioned the mortgage or anything else, because you know the 6-year-old only has 6 years of life to project the rest. Do you see what I'm saying? As the 6-year-old starts to grow, the innocence can turn into wisdom and knowingness and balance. If you take a look at what the 6-year-old really was saying, is that I want to create the joys that I have, and I don't want to be afraid, because I want you to be there and I want you to hold my hand. Otherwise, I will be. And dear human being, that's exactly what you've been doing for eons. Do not underestimate the shift. You've heard it from the astrology. It has been presented in the numerology. The stars themselves look upon everything and target what is going on here. This shift you are in is going to rewrite human history and human future. It's hard to say such a thing, for how can a shift rewrite something that actually has already happened? And then you get into the paradoxes of the circle of time. And I'll get there. And I want this to be succinct, loving, easy to understand, and beautiful. Because it is. I'll give you a premise. You're starting to come home. Now that is not what you expected, did you? You're starting to come home. What could Kryon mean about that? And what is home? Let us put this premise forward. Old souls in this room and listening to this, you have been through it. And not just on planet Earth. You are children of the universe, and this galaxy knows you so well. For literally millions of years, you have been biological somewhere. And that sits into a special place in your Akash. A special place that starts to awaken, and you start to feel something. Some of you are starting to anticipate and feel their shift. And contrary, perhaps, to what others would say, you have to whisper to yourself, and it feels good. There's something happening. And you can't put your finger on it because it doesn't seem to be in the news or anywhere else. No, it's inside. It's intuitive. Let me tell you what some of you are starting to awaken to. You're starting to mature past a kind of human consciousness that ever was in the past. And you're starting to remember that it's good. I said once that a fool never knows they're a fool unless they start to awaken to a bigger truth and they can look backwards and say, I was a fool. And that takes something they did not have when they were a fool. And that is what is starting to occur. There are greater awarenesses, and they're coming from two places. One is the very fact that this energy of the shift is starting to propel an evolution that we have spoken of for 20 years. That when the shift takes place, there will start to be an evolution of consciousness. Some of you will see it in the children, others will see it in yourselves and those around you. There will be a slow awareness, a shift, a change, even in society, of what it wants and what it doesn't want, what it eats, how it raises their children. It's not necessarily all metaphysical, but the old soul is the one who is on the front line. You are starting to receive information that feels good. That is an awareness, it is an evolution. That's the first place it comes from. The second place is your universal Akash. You are starting to remember this event. What event are you talking about, Kryon? The shift. Well, how could I remember something that just happened? Because it's happened where you used to be. It's happened on every single planet that went into an ascension status. This was the scenario. And it's here again. Deja vu. It's here again. And some of you are starting to awaken to this and are getting chills when I talk about it. And you'll say, this explains it. It also explains why you're so insistent on it being quick. And it won't be. The insistence is because you can feel it and you can touch it. Been there, done that, get on with it. Why do we have to then go through years? It sits there in front of you. You can feel it because you did it before. And this propels you to a higher place. A place that will not depend upon the past to predict the future. You're coming home because home is high awareness. Home is wisdom. Home is peace on earth. Home is compassionate. Home is where you know you can be. Home is based in love. Home is spiritual systems on the planet who may be very different, but give them all the ability to worship as they choose. That's home. You've seen it before. And here it comes. Slow, slow. This morning I said to you, be careful what you expect, because that's what's going to be delivered. Let's run through some. First is, I want to give you a premise. Relax unto yourself and know you're your own parent. Relax into yourself and know your own parent. You're your own parent. Dear ones, you have gone through a human nature that says if mom and dad aren't there, then you've got to find a substitute. And that substitute may be somebody you were with or meet or the church or something. You got to grab the hand of somebody, because otherwise it's a crazy world and it's fearful. And for some of you, the idea of being alone, totally not acceptable. There's got to be that place where you can go where it's so safe and there's no fear. And you take the hand of God inside you. Can you do that? Can you get to this place that you're evolving to, where literally the help comes from inside, not outside? Some of you have noticed that in this new energy, there are greater mood swings. Welcome to the new earth. And in these mood swings, there is a tendency, especially for light workers, to immediately call for help and ask, why am I feeling like I'm feeling? And there'll be plenty to take your phone call and tell you why you're feeling like you're feeling. What if you didn't? What if you knew you were self-balancing and it was going to come back and it's just part of a cycle of recalibration, swinging up, swinging down, trying to find a new midpoint, and in the process, it's you with you. I want to tell you, there is a big handout waiting to take your hand, and it's that higher part of you, God inside. God is inside. Isn't it good enough? Isn't God good enough to be inside you? Does it have to be outside? Does it have to be in the ethers? Does it have to be in a building? Or can you sit and take your own hand and say, this is good, and relax? That's maturity. And that's what we're teaching. Number 2, the end of suffering. And I don't mean physical, I mean the kind of suffering that you put yourself through constantly. You're told from birth, from so many areas, so many places, if you suffer a little, that's a good thing. That's an old energy axiom, and it's not true, it never was. You're born magnificent, but like the 6-year-old, you don't know it. You don't know it. You want your future to be filled with what you're used to that makes you happy. Toys and more toys. And in the process, you grow up and you start suffering because it isn't that way. And you paste upon yourself consciousness things that turn into and morph into disease. All disease is created by the human being that it lives in. All disease. You think you catch stuff. That's because your countenance and your biology says, come on in. And perhaps that's not a premise that you agree with or that you even like. But that's the 6-year-old who's afraid of everything and just wants the sun to come out and play. As you start to grow, dear ones, you'll realize you're not here to suffer at all, and anyone who told you that was absolutely incorrect. You're here to celebrate. You're born magnificent, and it's supposed to just get better if you let it, if you let it, if you let it. Free choice is about humans doing whatever they wish to do, but as they start to grow, they start to be attracted to other humans who figured it out. They become their role models. What if I could introduce you to a human being who was so peaceful they were their own parent, who have stopped suffering to themselves, were joyful as they woke up in the morning. Oh, they have the same problems everyone does, but they don't react to them. Instead, they create around them their joy, their reality, all it is. And if I introduced him to them, wouldn't you want to be with them? Wouldn't you say, let me just hang out with you for a while? When I'm with you, I feel better. Shall I give a name to that human? Your name goes here. There is a population on this planet who wants to look at you that way, because that's where you're going. And old soul, you will be on the front line to arrive there first. You have the most experience. You have the most training. You fought your way through an earth with so much old energy. You've been swatted down. You've been burned at the stake. You've been insulted because you loved God in your way, because you knew more things than others, because you had a little magic. And now you awaken in this energy, and everything I have said is a positive. And there will be those who see your magic and will see that countenance that you have that's peaceful, and they're going to say, can I hang out with you for a while? Because you're not in drama about anything. You're not reactionary. You're a creator. That is who you are, old soul. And you can reach right down inside and find it. It's there to be found. Number 3, fear. You figured it out. You figured it out. Fear is caused by darkness, and darkness is caused by lack of light. All you have to do is turn on the light, and there won't be fear. We've said it over and over that human beings fought with each other because they couldn't see each other. And when you turn on the light and you see the other one and you see the God inside the other one, you say, they're just like me. I may not agree with them, but they're just like me. And you start to then see what you have in common. When this starts to occur to more of humanity, you'll stop killing each other. You're in the dark. You never really met each other. You only know each other by what others have told you you're like and they're like, without actually being in a room alone with them and saying, wow, God loves them like they do me. We've got something in common here. When you turn on the light, that's how you see others. The light cannot be turned on while you're afraid. The light cannot be turned on if you have already made up your mind you're going to stay in the dark. 6-year-old. What have you decided is your future? Is it the same old, same old? Number 4. There's an awareness of a bigger picture. The 6-year-old only sees that which is immediately around them. Take the 6-year-old to the store. The 6-year-old enjoys the ride. He listens to what's in the car. He enjoys the toy that he has with him. You take him to the store. He enjoys the store. He looks around. He sees others, interesting things, foods he likes, and you take him home. The 6-year-old did not see what kind of car you are in, what's the speed limit, what are the rules, do you have to have a license, where is the store? Is the store going to be open or not? Do you have enough cash to buy the food that you went for? Beyond, completely and totally beyond anything the 6-year-old would see. The greater awareness that you're having and starting to have is a much, much larger picture than what's going on with you, your family, or your country. It starts to be a planetary awareness and starts to balance how you think. You've been here before. You start looking at that which is around you and what is going on nationally, planetarily. You start looking at the energies which are different than they were 50 years ago and realizing you're overdue for a war. So let's talk about that. And that brings us to other things. In just a moment, I'm going to review a little bit of physics, that which is called fractal time. Awareness of a larger picture is part of the evolving human spirit. If you stay in your own square, dear ones, that then will be what you expect for the future. Number 5. I cannot stress this more. There's a light starting to shine, and you're moving toward it. And the light is called worthiness. Worthiness. You are so worthy of absolutely everything that I am talking about right now. Everything. Don't let anybody tell you you're not. Don't let those who are spiritual in some building tell you you're not. Don't let your parents tell you you're not. Don't let your friends tell you you're not. Because they're wrong. In the ignorance they have from the old human nature, they may believe it, but they're wrong. The truth is, you are magnificent. Worthy beyond belief. Dear old soul, it's the worthiness that's going to let you get beyond this disenfranchisement of life that you've been given. Your Akash reeks with this. You never got ahead, not as a light worker. Every time you use magic, you're punished. The magic that I speak of is that which others see as magic, and you just see as metaphysical truth. Every time you started to open the door for that which was truisms, like creating your own reality, like that which you had God inside, every time you did, you were beat up for it. And that creates a lack of self-worth, and that's over. It's the end of suffering. It's the end of low self-worth. If you want to, free choice. If you want it. I want to tell you, now is the time. You know what has changed here? Everything. If you've ever thought of the veil that pushes upon this planet and perhaps keeps it in the dark, it doesn't. It responds to your consciousness. The veil starts to lift when enough humanity starts to then think out of the box and starts growing up and going home. Going home. Home is that place that you've seen before. So peaceful. No fear. Taking the hand of God inside you. That's home. You are worthy. Very worthy. I want to talk about physics. I want to talk about something in order to present to you very carefully something to consider. And there will be many who hear this and they will roll their eyes and they will simply not believe it. Only time will show you. And even then you may not believe it. There are attributes of physics you don't know about yet. No matter how big your accelerators get, you still won't know it. There are two kinds of physics. The kind that is manipulable, you can manipulate it. My partner can't speak the word, so we just changed the sentence. And then there's the kind that you can only observe. And you have subatomic particles that are the governors of each kind. That's why we have told you from the beginning, you can change mass of anything. Because the laws then support that. There's much in physics that can be created literally from nothing. It's just molecules and atoms put together in a scenario that once you know how, you can manipulate them. This will be high science. It will come to you. It will free you from gravity eventually. Now that is things you can manipulate. And then there's the kind of physics that is what I'll call core physics, that cannot be changed, only observed. And the biggest one, the most confusing one, the one that we'll only open this tiny little box right now because there's such conundrums, is time. There's a subatomic particle you've named called the Higgs singlet. And that particular particle is being sought after because there are physicists convinced that it shifts dimensions and time. That is a core particle. You've heard of time travel. that particle, when understood, will allow for this. For you can flip into another dimension and go backwards in time and reappear in yours, and you can observe but never change. It is a core element of physics that remains the same. There are other core elements of physics. In fact, the ones that my partner started to talk about today, called the field, core elements that are benevolent to harmony, that want to pull things together. And if you knew how that worked and why it worked, it should put a smile on your face, because that's the physics you live in right now. If you started to examine the Higgs singlet, you would start to see why fractal time works the way it does. Now, I'm going to stop getting scientific, and I'm going to make it more practical. There are those who will say that time is in a circle. In fact, it imprints things on it that then repeat. You probably have heard this. Time repeats itself. It does. History repeats itself. It does. And so therefore, this whole idea of time in a circle and having imprinted things in it has accuracy. So as you go around the circle, which to you is a straight line, you then come upon what we will call energy markers. And those energy markers may very well create the same thing the last one did. You're in a circle. Here it comes again. Here it comes again. Here it comes again. You're overdue for a war, dear ones, and you're not going to have one. You passed that. You passed that 16 years ago. All of the prophecy of the scripture told you you'd have one. Did you notice? You didn't. How many years have to go by before humanity will take a look and say, you know, it didn't happen? And all that prophecy scared us. Well, maybe it will. But what have you just done? You've expected the war. Here it comes. If you watch your television, the whole premise of getting you to buy things is to create fear. And if you watch some science programs, they will say, well, it's not a condition of when it's going to be, or if it's when. These things are going to happen. In time, these are going to happen. It's very frightening. They've just placed an order. But did you buy into it or not? What do you hear others say that you buy into? That's your expectation? Oh, there's so much coming. This fractal of time has an interesting, very interesting attribute. What did I tell you about the Higgs singlet? I told you that it could broach dimensions, therefore putting itself in other time frames. Now, here's what I want to tell you, because that's confusing to so many. If you change something in the circle of time, you rewrite the future. If you change something in the circle of time, you rewrite the future. In other words, the fractals that existed before that tended to repeat are voided. You might say you moved into a slightly different dimension where the prophecies of old will not take place. And if you said that, bingo! There is absolute truth in that. That will be discovered someday. And why do I tell you this? I presented an expose on wild cards the last time I was with you. I listed a number of them. I gave you the rules of wild cards. They're not created by spirit. They can be inventions. They can be persons who've changed history. And what happens in this is that humans take advantage of an energy that spirit then creates. For instance, Did you notice when the veil lifted slightly and it was time for certain inventions, that the inventions came upon this planet all at once, all over the earth? What a coinky-dinky. That the Wright brothers only beat the French by a week or so. And you can go on, and you can go on, and you can go on. It just seems like the earth is given the information all at once at a certain time. That's not exactly right. We don't give you anything. We lift the veil slightly, and the humans who are able to think of these things do it. And that has happened repeatedly. So these are the rules of the wild cards. Don't think for a moment that Spirit has created the wild cards. You create them with your own rules, with your own consciousness, and your own systems. You just did one. We told you of this election being a wild card. Definition of a wild card: totally and completely unexpected event, which then changes things from then on. You have a wild card. Now, I beg you, you've come in from another planet and you're observing. Wipe away the bias. It's hard. Wipe it away. And listen to this for just a moment, because this is the first time, and perhaps the last, that I'll ever tell you this. There are those on this planet who can sense the fractals. They're called precogs. Government knows about them. They are ones who can simply sense what is already there. Because time is in a circle, and fractal time presents elements of energy that come at you in this circle, and they can make then predictions. They started doing that last year. One of the predictions that they came was that you're going to have a major, total, complete financial collapse in about February or March. And some of you have heard this. It's frightening. The precogs started talking about it, and then there were others that started talking about it, and the closer it got, the more talked about it. Now, this also follows suit because the ones who study patterns of finance, of stocks, of investments, of national debts, they see the patterns, and they started yelling too. They said, it's coming. Can't you see it? Some said you're going to run for the hills. It's going to be worse than anything because it affects everyone in the States, and that affects everyone on the planet. Do you know what I'm going to tell you? Lorenz said, when a butterfly flaps its wings, in a few weeks something else major could happen, perhaps even in a hurricane, because little things change big things, and big things change even bigger things. Here is what I want to tell you. Everyone was expecting on this planet a certain outcome. When I say everyone, I mean the majority had it figured out what would take place with this election you had. And if that had happened, I would like to tell you something. That the financial systems would have stayed in place. The one would have taken over from the other, and the systems that were bound to fail would have gone right into that place where they would fail. There was no reason to change anything because it was all working. And then the wild card came. You're coming from space. You have no invested bias at all, and you're looking down in a metaphysical way, and you're saying, isn't it interesting how this wild card is going to change what would have happened in February or March? Are you understanding what I'm telling you? Maybe, just maybe, putting a stick in everything and turning it quickly is what was needed right now in order to change that specter of a complete and total financial failure. I want you to see what's going to happen, and whether some seeds of it still occur or whether there's a hiccup. But I'll tell you, without this wild card, it would have gone same old, right to where the fruition of the problem would be. And the precogs would have been right, and the fractal time would have proved itself. But instead, it has voided itself because of the wild card. The wild card was not given by Spirit, hardly. It was humans, free choice, free system, putting a wild card in place. And now I give you this because no one has ever thought of that. And you're going to say, well, what's going to happen next? What's the most benevolent outcome? No financial collapse? Good things? I'll say it because I said it this morning. What is the order you're going to place? Think of it as writing a sheet on a sheet of paper and giving it to the waitress. What's going to come to your table? Aren't you tired of ordering suffering? Aren't you tired of ordering that which is the lowest expectation? Aren't you tired of expecting horrible things from other people? And the answer is yes. That's not where the light worker is. What are you going to do with this? Physics is on your side, dear ones, at your back, personally and also planetarily. This was always in the cards so that you could continue on without a horror of financial collapse. So you could continue on, and this planet can grow faster because of it and not have to be dragged down for years and years and years. And that, dear ones, is the free choice that you have made at a level you didn't expect you even had. Metaphysics is truly working here. That's the message of the day. Can you feel the entourage yet? Can you feel the smiles and the joy of those who know the potentials of the future you have? You are so in control. And some of you feel so out of control. It doesn't happen overnight. I want you to consider this message. I want you to watch what happens on the planet. And I want you to adjust into a way where you can get up in the morning and place your order. Most benevolent outcome, the things are joyful. The days of the ignorance of the 6-year-old are gone and replaced by maturity of wisdom and compassion, where you see a bigger picture and you can paint it with light. And you can manifest the things on this planet that you deserve because you're worthy of it. Start at home. Start here. Start in this season. You are the hope of the world at this moment, at this time. I hope this helps to shed some light on how things work in this new energy. There are more wild cards coming, and some of them will be in inventions. I'll tell you yet again, there's one coming, and it's in physics, and it has to do with quantum fields, and it's waiting, and it's waiting, and it's waiting. And it won't be here until you are less prone to weaponize it. And when that consciousness happens, that is when this planet will have a veil lifted, and there will be others with discoveries, and more discoveries, and more discoveries, and more discoveries. And they will be mostly for the health and well-being and peacefulness of humanity. I'm closing now. And there'll be those who listen to this and walk out and they'll go, that's ridiculous. Because I know human nature. Boy, have they just placed an order. That's not yours, and I know it isn't. Be peaceful. Relax into yourself and be your own parent. Take the hand of your higher self this day. And if you do, you'll live longer. I am Kryon, in love with humanity, and for good reason. And so it is.